Hello, everyone. Sorry about this. We're having a little bit of difficulty for me getting in. Let's see. I want to share my screen. All right. Apologies for the delay. Let me see. Trying to get my videos on. Let me see. Show self view, maybe. Okay, there we go. Let me see. All right. Okay, we're here. We're good. All right. I apologize, everyone, for running late. Um, Let me get centered for a second. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cover and go over some terms in homeopathy, also some medical terms, and just show you guys where to find them in the repertory. Um, Also, I'm going to go over 3 different resources that are in Radar Opus Adonis, and I use them all the time when I come across something, and I really want to make sure that I'm using the correct rubric because, once you take a case and you have symptoms that you want to repertorize, it's really important to find the exact rubric that expresses the symptom. So we'll go over that. We'll just kind of go from there. Okay, so first couple words. The first one we're going to go over is abstraction of mind and what it means. So obviously this is in the mind chapter, and there's a really good resource here. This is Farouk Master. Let's see, which one is it? Perceiving Rubrics of the Mind. This one right here. This is the one that's open. I have open. I mean, if you really want to understand each rubric, if you want to understand words that you need to use when applying them to the mentals, this is really, I would say, the go-to book. So I've got it open already. So the way we do that, so just to step back for a second, this is my Radar Adonis that's open. I've got a bunch of tabs open. I've got a search tab open. I've got my reference tab open. This tab has to do with remedies. These are the remedies I've been looking up lately. I can close all those, simplify things. This is my repertory tab here. And then if I had a patient, the patient tab would be there. So right now, because this is a darker grayish blue, these are gray, these are kind of a bluish color. That means this is the active open tab. And so what I'm going to do is if you want to search anywhere or do anything in a tab, you want to go to the binoculars here. So find rubrics or hierarchical search. So I click on that. And then you have the acknowledgments in the front of the book, perceiving rubrics of the mind, preface, prologue, the mind and somatic illness, and then another chapter, the principles of homeopathy, its conceptual issues, psychology. It's cut off a little bit. So I click on that, and then I go to, and so perceiving rubrics of the mind. He starts off alphabetically. You can't actually, you can scroll through really fast like this. It's obviously it's in alphabetical order. In a lot of books, when you go here to the binoculars, it'll go to remedies and then it'll give you an alphabet, A through Z. You just click, start typing in the remedy and it'll bring you right to the remedy. I'll show you it in a minute. So anyway, you can't do that with this book, but it's still an amazing, amazing reference. So abstraction of mind. Here it is, right here. So the abstraction of mind, meaning preoccupied, cross-reference absorbed, and then you can look at these other rubrics. So these are rubrics that are close: absent-minded, concentration difficult, And under concentration difficult, there'll be a bunch of sub-rubrics as to why. Um, daydreaming, as if in a dream, absorbed in fancies. That's a term, that's an old antiquated homeopathic term, fancies. But if somebody who's absorbed in fancies or absorbed in stories that their mind is constantly making up, big remedy for that would be cannabis indica, is I think a grade 3 under absorbed in fancies. Um, meditating, reflecting, reveries, sits meditating, wrapped in thought. Um, so you have the meaning, preoccupation, the cross references, and then you go down here to explanation. Whenever the patient wants to apply his mind, there's a distraction of his thinking process. As a result, he suffers. This is especially true when the patient wants to read, write, or talk. So they go to read, they go to write, they go to talk, and there's a distraction. There's an abstraction of the mind. Okay. I use this rubric probably, I don't know, half a dozen, 10 times a year for people that are dealing with mental issues, uh, the ability to think, cognition. Um, and he gives you a couple of remedies that are possibilities. But if we go to abstraction of mind, so I've gone from the references tab that I just closed, and I opened up the repertory tab, and there's abstraction of mind. And you can see distraction. Here's another way you can kind of tell if you want to. Not every rubric has this, but many do. They'll give you the rubric, and then they'll give you like a very brief definition. And there's 154 remedies currently that have been placed in that rubric of abstraction of mind. Okay, so that's the first term that I wanted to go over. The next one is absorbed. So we'll just go back. The other references you can use is Yasgur's. Where is Yasgur? Here it is. Homeopathic Dictionary and Holistic Health Reference. I'm just going to jump over to this, go over it really quickly. So this is one, Yasgur is a great one where you can click a dictionary of homeopathy, glossary, compound words, dictionary, um, eponyms, so on and so forth. So it's a really, really good reference, a really good resource. So dictionary, you just type in absorbed. That's not in there. So I actually wanted to show to you in, so if you see what I'm doing, I know I'm not sure what skill level everybody is at here, but if you're learning terminology, maybe you're very new to the repertory and how it works. So right now, Yasgur's is open. I'm going to click on the caret facing downward. And these are actually all the references that I currently have open. So I'm in Yasgur, so I'm going to go down to perceiving rubrics of the mind again. I just click on it once and then go down to used, absorbed, absurd, absorbed. So the person, when you use this, the person is engrossed. And these are the cross references again, absent-minded, abstraction of mind, brooding, daydreaming, absorbed in fancy, and so on. And very similar to abstraction of mind. A patient having above symptoms are typically seen in insane home where one can see cases of catatonic schizophrenia, disease conditions, depressive illness, organic mental disorders, withdrawn catatonic schizophrenia, drugs, arnica, capsicum, hellebores, laurocerasis, and so on. So they're engrossed in thought. They're engrossed in their mind. They're not present here outside. They're within themselves. Okay. Accommodation is an interesting one. This is a medical term. And you would use this one when the person says, when I'm looking at something close and then I look far away, it takes a minute for my eyes to adjust. So what we're talking about is the eye's ability to focus close to far, or if they're looking out and they focus in on something close, it takes a bit of time. It doesn't happen instantaneously. In a normal state of health, You look far away, everything's clear far away. You look close, everything's clear close. Accommodation is under the vision chapter. So we go here and we could look it up. It wouldn't be under mind rubrics. It would actually be under Yasgur's. Oops, I clicked on the wrong one. Sorry. 1 second. There it is, Yasgur. Accommodation should be in here. Dictionary. Accommodation, there it is. So I'm just single clicking on it, and then I'm pressing return now. So accommodation, the ability to focus one's eye on objects at different distances. So if you can accommodate in a healthy manner, you look at something close, it's sharp right away. You look at something far away, it's sharp right away. So it's under the vision chapter. So I'm just typing in V. I've opened up again the references. Let me just close this for a second. So I click on the caret, the down-facing caret. These are all the repertories I currently have open. Okay. Obviously, my kind of like my home base is Adonis, but I do like to look in Fatak. I do like to, when I do a search, I look in all the different repertories because there are variations and differences. So it's really important when you do a search for a particular term or something that you're looking for, you look in all of the different repertories. At least that's what I do. So we are currently in Adonis. So I can either click here and it's going to give me all the different chapters, right? And so under I, vision, I'm just going to click on vision, or I could have just typed in V and there's the first word, accommodation. I'm just going to press enter. So we have accommodation defective, and then here's just a little brief definition. Paralysis accommodative. So that if the muscles are paralyzed, or there's paresis, which is weakness of either the nerve that's innervating the muscles or the muscles themselves. And then you have all of your remedies here. And belladonna is a big one. Chalcimium is a big one. Hydrastis, ipecac, jabarandi. So you've got your remedies, and you can have accommodation defective after diphtheria. Physostigma is the only remedy there. This physostigma is a big remedy for problems with the eyes and the nervous system. Accommodation defective of moving objects. So if something's moving away, they're having a difficulty following it as it's going away or moving. It's out of focus. If it stops, it'll come into focus. Cocculus is a big neurological remedy, so it makes sense that it would be there. Diminished. So just a term that I've used periodically over the years. I just wanted you to be aware of it. There are so many words. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try my best to make this entertaining as I can, because I mean, we're just going over definitions of terms. And I just picked a handful, probably about, I think like 6, 7, possibly 8 slides with about 5 to 6 on each one. Obviously, this is something that it's a lifelong study. So admonished and admonishment, usually when I'm using that rubric, it's going to be under mind. And there's usually sensitivity to or ailments from admonishment. So admonishment is not under sensitive. So if I do admonish, aggravates, admonition aggravates. So in older repertories and other repertories, I'll show you. Admonition. Putting in a couple variations of the word. So I'm clicking up here. I want to look at least one of these words. So I'm looking at both words separately. And I'm going to look in all the repertories. An admonishment is corrected. It's close to being reprimanded. So in Adonis, you've got admonished aggravates, and then ailments from, weeping from admonishment, generals admonishment aggravates, but there aren't any remedies here because they're all in the mind chapter. And we go to Boger, aggravation from admonishment, even kindly. And so you've got only 6 remedies in there. Interesting that Platine is there. So belladonna, China, and so on. Then you can go to Magliavori. He's got a really good repertory. It's, I think, a lot more contemporary. Ailments from admonishment, even kindly, weeping from admonishment. So, um, and then Murphy's always good. Ailments from admonishment, even kindly. He's got 7 remedies in there. So, and sometimes what I'll do is I'll pick rubrics like weeping from admonishment. I'll pick it from Murphy, Magliavori, Boger, and Adonis, and I'll put them all into one clipboard, and then I'll combine them. So instead of having an average of maybe 16 to 20 remedies, I'll end up with maybe, I don't know, 24, 25. So you're just casting a wider net. Um, so we go to homeopathic dictionary, and we can just scroll down to admonishment. Admixture. So we don't have it here in Yasgur's. So then you would just switch back. The other way you can do it is, let me just close this out. You do a search. And so I looked in the repertories. The other way I can do is I want to look up both words. I don't want in all repertories, which it says here. I want to go into all references. Or I can go into type of references. So dictionaries and others. Cross-reference, admonish, weeping, cause. So perceiving rubrics of the mind, ailments from admonishment. Let me go to that book itself. I'm just going to scroll down. Admiration, admonishment. Counseling. So here's the definition. Counseling or warning against fault or oversight aggravates. Aggravation from gentle or friendly reproof. So here the patient feels excited or gets angry or has a strong aversion to any advice or word of caution. So if you tell a child, don't go over there, don't do that. I told you not to do that. An admonishment. Sensitive, oversensitive to reprimands, to criticism, to reproach. So reproach, reprimands, admonishment, very, very similar. And just clinically, if you have any person, child, adolescent, adult, if they cry when they're admonished or reprimanded, it's a really good rubric to use. Affectation is a good one. So this is it's here in the mind chapter. Affectation. So what's interesting is it says here it's a formal, prim, in children, affected. That is not really what affectation is. Because when we go here to affectation, as I understand affectation, the act of taking on or displaying an attitude or mode of behavior not natural or not genuine. So it's unnatural speech or conduct, and it's usually to impress, to give an appearance. To impress the opposite person, the patient tries to put up a big show, which is quite different from reality. So it's really, and we can check in Yasgur's as well. Just go to Yasgur real quick. There might be a question, so I'm gonna go over there just a second. Let's go to dictionary and admonishment. Excuse me, affectation. A pretentious show. That's how I understand what an affectation is. It's a pretentious show or display, artificial mannerisms or behavior adopted to draw attention or to impress. And that's really how I understand it. Let me see. I think there's some questions. Okay. Maybe not. Somebody just came in late. No worries, no worries. We started late. And All right, so affectation is a good one. And again, it's like a pretentious show or a display, and it's not natural, it's artificial in manner or in speech or behavior. They're trying to put on it's a facade, an artificial facade. Okay. Um, where would you find altitude sickness? You know, if you don't know where to look for it, well, the good thing is with today's repertories, it's going to be under generals. I'm just going to type in Gen, and the general chapter is going to pop up. I'm going to press return or enter, and then I'm just going to type in altitude sickness. And thankfully, we've got computers that and we've got programmers that have made these so that we can click on that, and then it takes us to the actual rubric. So the original rubric for altitude sickness is mountain sickness. So we can double click on that. And you can see here, it tells you that mountain sickness is altitude sickness, which makes sense, right? You're up in the mountains, you're too high, and the lack of oxygen makes you sick. These are your remedies. Calcarea, coca is a big one, right? The people indigenous to the Andes that chew the coca leaves in order to help with the altitude sickness. Um, Silica, which might be a bit of a surprise. Um, Somebody who's at Jan Schulten has put oxygen in there. I could see why. Coffee is a good one. So anyway, if you're looking for a rubric for altitude sickness, it would be under mountain sickness. Okay. Next bunch of rubrics, the word amative or amativeness. These are people that are, the synonym would be lascivious, um, amorous, amativeness. Click on that one. And it's got a little blue flag. So I just run my mouse over the blue flag. It tells us it's amorous or erotic. So, and there should be amorous, amative, and you can click on amorous, erotic, flirting, at love, love sight first, love at first sight. 128 remedies there, and then you've got a bunch of cross references down here. Amativeness, ecstasy, amorous, lascivious would be the other remedy. Or you could use this rubric if this is what the person was doing, kissing everybody. So lascivious is the other one, lustful, pleasure, voluptuous. Um, just good to know that that's there. I'm going to go back to the eyes. Amblyopia. This is weakness of the eye with no visible pathology. So there's nothing, there's no pathological problems with the nerve tissue or the muscles. The eyes are just tired. They're weak. They're fatigued. So go to eye, amblyopia. You see this a lot these days because we use so many computer screens. All the people are always on their phones and always on their, oh, my eyes are so tired. My eyes getting weak. Um, so we can look it up. The way we'll do that is we'll go to amblyopia. So these um, four different menus where you can type things in. The first one all the way here on the left, you type in the word that you're looking for, or you can type in the word and associated with a remedy if you put a particular remedy in, or families. I actually don't use this very much. Or you can look in particular chapters, okay? So if we want to look up, yeah, and then we want to look in references. So the drop-down menu comes down. I can look in repertories, the open repertories, all references, open references, and then type of, and then I go down to dictionary and others. And so Jane, this is one of the three references I was going to share with you. Amblyopia, dimness of vision, amblyopia on one side associated hemiesthesia. Postmarital amblyopia, impaired vision caused by sexual excess. It's a real thing, and they would used to say, if you masturbate, you go blind. Like that's something that I heard as a kid. if the person does have a strong habit of that, it can affect the eyes. I'll even show you the rubric and the remedies. So Yasgur, amblyopia. Um, it's interesting, they're not giving the definitions here. Let me just go real quick and then I'll show you. So Yasgur, uh, oh, actually in the A's. So dictionary, A, amblyopia. Dimness of vision without apparent physical defect or disease. I can press enter. Or disease of the eye, blurred or weak vision. So very, very common amblyopia in today's day and age. Then the repertory or the rubric, I will show you. So we will look under eye chapter and chapter, and we'll put in term masturbation. And another term we're actually going to go over, pollutions. So what this is, I'm going to make the computer search for these two terms in these two chapters. And I'm going to look in all repertories. The Shrine Adonis has masturbation aggravates, there's pain, paralysis, photophobia, diplopia, double vision from, there's two remedies, Xena and sepia, and those are both Fatak, is used these two remedies to treat that. Loss of vision from, I'm pretty sure gelsemium phosphoric acid. If I'm not mistaken, Thuias might be in there as well. So loss of vision. I'm just dragging the mouse over the number 2. And then vision weak from, there's Sena again. So Sena, which is a big remedy for worms, also apparently is strongly indicated for this issue here. Vision after pollutions, calicarbonicum. And there's Sena again. If you wanted to look up a particular remedy to see which, you could do that as well. Okay, so weakness of the eyes, amblyopia. Anxiety of conscience. So this is actually the best place to look for that would be, again, to Farouk Master, the Perceiving Rubrics of the Mind. So it should be their anxiety alert. Anticipation, anxiety. So we know what anxiety is. Anxiety of conscience is the other place you can look would be under Yasgur. And then there are, where was it? Compound words. Nope, that wasn't it. It's a feeling of guilt. Under mind, anxiety, conscience, anxiety, conscience, and then press enter. And here are a bunch of terms, as if guilty, feelings of culpability, I'm the one to blame, delusions, as if he has done bad, delusions, they should have done this or that. And then there's a little black flag. And this is one of the most valuable symptoms in homeopathy. When the symptom is marked, and it is generally the highest ranking symptom in the repertorization. The person who feels guilty suffers a terrible kind of pain, like an anguish, like an emotional anguish, where he carries within him both the person who committed the crime and the person who is punished for it. He constantly relives the painful images of himself in the act of sinning or of making that fatal mistake. The feelings of guilt involve ideas of transgression, of stigma, of sin and error. There's another rubric you might want to consider for that. It's under mind, delusions, one is sinned away, has committed an unpardonable sin or sinned away his day of grace. And I can guarantee you, if you put this rubric here, sinned away, one is sinned away his day of grace, and committed an unpardonable sin. And then I'm just going to backspace anxiety of conscience. There's going to be a lot. The remedies that are in this bigger rubric of 221 remedies will definitely be in these others. And CC Aurum is one of the main ones. They have a lot of guilt, as if they've let others down. A lot of metals, Aurum, the metals that are on the right side of the periodic table. Metal, lead, arsenicum, and chelidonium has a lot of anxiety of conscience. Serenum, sulfur, and so on. So, anxiety of conscience, again, really good rubric if somebody has this really, really strong sense of guilt as though they've done something wrong. The other big one that you may or may not know is under feeling as though they've committed, or similar to feeling they've committed an unpardonable sin, is delusions. It's the object of God's vengeance, and we all know that Calibromatum is the main remedy for that. I actually recently had a case of a teenager that was having these very, very, very intrusive thoughts that were causing him a lot of anxiety. The thoughts were essentially these thoughts he could not control, and they made him feel horrible, really anxious because he thought he would lose his mind. One of these thoughts of it's just these really quick images and thoughts of him killing a family member, and they were plaguing him through the day. And I ended up giving him calibromatum. He's doing actually really, really well. He hasn't had the thoughts since he's taken the remedy. So just keep that in mind. Ardent. So we just go to mind. Ardent. Emotional excitement, enthusiasm. The enthusiasm is an interesting term. Entheo. Theo is the Greek word for God. So enthusiasm means to be filled with God. If you're really enthusiastic about something, it means that you're filled with God, you're very passionate about something. But ardent can also be very fiery temperament, passionate. Okay. So these are people that they talk loudly, they get excited about things, they argue a lot, they can be quite interesting to be around or to take their case. And then you have the cross references, anger. Anger's remember in the mind chapter, a lot of these rubrics that they deal with directly with emotions are human specific. So human specific emotions are not very homeopathically relevant because there's nothing unique about them. We all have the capacity to feel anger. We all have the capacity to feel grief. We all have the capacity to feel anxiety. We all have the capacity to cry, to weep. So these are all human specific. So they're not homeopathically relevant. What makes them relevant is if somebody develops a symptom because of them, right? I recently had a case where there was a child and he had to go in for a physical exam. He was extremely just embarrassed about, I mean, even in front of the doctor, beside himself with embarrassment, feeling uncomfortable, and he develops a headache from it. So if you go to head, pain, from mortification, and the remedy that I gave him was in here from feeling humiliated or mortified. You can use ailments for mortification if you want to. Double click on that. Chagrin, mortified. You can also look it up, what mortification means. Homeopathic dictionary. Again, you go and you click on the binoculars and mortification. Humiliation or indignation of the gangrene. Oh yeah, something is mortified. Mort means to die. So something is, we're going to actually cover a term that has to do with dead tissues. So yeah, so more means to die. So they're so humiliated or so much indignation they feel as though they're going to die. That's mortification. Avarice. These are people that pinch pennies, right? So again, we can use. I'd actually like to see what Farouk Master has to say about it. So we would just go to, where is it? The mind, receiving rubrics of the mind, and avarice. Just scroll down. Avarice, there it is. Excess or insatiable desire for wealth or gain. Covetousness. Then you have a bunch of rubrics, delusions counting money, sewing money up in clothes, miserly, parsimony, disease conditions, and then important drugs. So then we can go here, right? Avarice, click on it. Miserly, covetous. And then you've got a blue flag, which will give you the definition, and then the black flag will give you kind of the clinical picture of how it presents. So excessive desire for more than one needs, deserves. Then you have the synonyms, being people that are greedy, um, so on and so forth. Then the black flag, it's not socially acceptable, and patients will rarely admit to being miserly or miser. And this is true. People, sussing this rubric out takes a little bit of patience and observation. So anyway, it's a good rubric if it's there. You see, arsenicum is a grade 4. Why is arsenicum so miserly? It's so much avarice because they have a really deep-seated insecurity that they're not going to have enough. They're going to get sick. Maybe if I get sick and I'm not able to work, I'm not able to make money. You have fear of robbers breaking into the house at night. So there's a whole issue around security, and money provides security in our society. So, capriciousness, changing one's mind for no particular reason. So mind, capriciousness, let's press enter twice. Fickle, fitful, wants something but does not know what for. It brings to mind a case that I've had where um, the child will um, they get fixated. If I just want this, I want this, I want it. And then the mom or the dad goes to give it to them. That's not what I want. I want this, I want this, I want it. And they just kind of escalate into something else. Perfect example of being capricious, full of desires for this and that. There's another rubric, sub-rubric. Let's see. This is a really, really useful sub-rubric here. So capriciousness, meaning they're changing their mind for no particular reason. And then he rejects the things for which he's been longing when offered. So they want the thing that they want. You go to give it to them, and toddler or a small child, they just take it and throw it, or they scream and throw themselves on the floor. That's usually how you see it. You see chamomile's there, rheum is there, staphysagria is there, ipecac is there. Um, Here's a little black flag. So this is normal characteristic in infancy. At this age, it would count as a symptom only if it appeared frequently and for long spells. It should be seen in context of the family background. Caution is in order when treating children who have been spoiled by their parents. Two qualities combined in the capricious patient: inconsistency. He desires everything. He doesn't know what he wants. The object of his desires change rapidly. And obstinacy. Demands are imperative and insistent. The child who has just been bought a new toy has scarcely left the toy shop when he takes a fancy to something else. So that would be an example of it. I've seen this over the years, and it's what's interesting is that chamomile, which is a grade 3, rheum is a grade 3, they're in the typhoid miasm. So there's this urgency, there's this criticality, I need this thing. And then when you go to give it to them, it doesn't relieve the feeling of urgency, the feeling of this is a critical situation. So they throw whatever it is that they were screaming for. There are other remedies in different bryonias, typhoid miasm, but there RMT is typhoid miasm, ipecac is typhoid miasm. Staphylos aureus has been placed in the cancer miasm. Cicale cornutum is leprosy miasm. So there's a bit of variation there. Anyway, capriciousness, carphalosia. You don't see this very much, but when you do, you definitely want to use it. It's picking. So we can type in mind, picking at things. Carphalosia. Click on that. And it's under gestures. There are quite a few rubrics that you'll look for. You might think, oh, wow, the child is always putting their fingers in the mouth. That might be under mouth. It might be under the extremities chapter for fingers, but it's not. It's under mouth, but then there's also another one that's under mind, gestures. So this is a very useful rubric, what the hands are doing. And carphalogia, as you can see, it's a big rubric, and it's been used quite a bit. And it's been well developed as a rubric. So we have the blue flag here that kind of gives you, no, it says carphalogia. So you need to know what that means. Involuntary motion of the hands, picking at the bedclothes. So they could be picking at the bedclothes, they could be picking at the blankets, doesn't really matter. They could be constantly picking at the couch that they're lying on, or the pillow that they've got their head on. And you've got a bunch of remedies there. What's interesting is that stramonium and hyoscyamus are both in the Solanaceae family, and they're both grade 3s. So picking at bedclothes. Censorious. I'm just gonna cut through some of these because I know we started late, but we're like 45 minutes in. The presentation's about an hour. So censorious, these are just people that are fault finding. They're critical. They find fault. It's typically towards other people because there's also censorious with oneself. And if the person is censorious, you can also use reproaching others, blaming others, right? Bit of a difference, but so censorious is really people that are just constantly, oh, that person's like that, or they're just finding fault in every little thing. It's a good rubric when it's there, but you make sure when you choose a rubric, you have to ask yourself, is the symptom like 0, the person's not censorious at all. 10, you just can't avoid it. They're always pointing out, that maybe 15 to 25% of the intake is them finding fault in others or situations. Or, it's very similar to complaining, a rubric for complaining. Coition is the term that we use for intercourse. So you're going to find it in the mind chapter. You're going to find it in the head chapter. You're going to find it in the eye chapter. In the respiratory chapter, we have a handful of remedies that become asthmatic from coition. And then again, is it before coition, during coition, after coition? So that's the term you use. If your case revolves around or has an aspect that's homeopathically relevant that has to do with intercourse. Conscientious about trifles, little things. Detail-oriented, meticulous, being able to, the child that can feel the tag on the back of the pants or feels the seam inside the socks and doesn't want it that way. That's conscientious about trifles. It's a big rubric. I think there's about 150 remedies or so in there. So very useful when it's in the case, but just make sure that it carries a lot of weight in the case. A coquette or somebody who's coquettish is flirtatious, right? So we would, I think, if I'm not mistaken, pulsatilla is like a grade 3. Fine. Coquettish. And there's not enough. And then too much. We tend to see this one more. Interesting, sulfur of Vithulcos, put that in there. In children, phosphorus, there's pulsatilla, platina, lachesis, hyoscyamus. So it's just somebody who tends to be flirtatious in nature. Ennui, That's if somebody's always complaining, you'll get every once in a while, kids. I'm bored constantly. I'm bored. You can use the rubric only for boredom. Fancies are just reveries, thoughts, daydreaming. Somebody's in their head, in in the mind, from a yogic um, point of view, is a contracted form of the universe. If you just step back and you think what happens in the universe, there's things that are constantly coming into creation, things that are being sustained, whether they're being sustained for a fraction of a second or for a billion years, and then things that are going into dissolution. So there's this constant things are coming into being sustained, and dissolving, going out of creation, into creation, out of creation. The mind has that same capacity. That's why they say, from a yogic point of view, that the mind is contracted consciousness. It has the same characteristics that the universe has, just within us. And I mean, you think about it, when is your mind completely still and silent? Maybe deep in meditation, maybe if you're really focused on something, your mind gets still. So these fancies are when the mind just starts to become out of control, and the person doesn't have the capacity to focus their mind on reading, talking, and they're just always in their head, thinking and daydreaming and thinking about things in the world that the mind is created within. The consciousness gets pulled to that instead of being able to be out here in the world. The term farinaceous, this is a good one. I don't know how useful it actually is in the States, because so much wheat is sprayed with glyphosate. Hopefully that'll stop soon under the new HHS secretaries. But they developed a practice in the States where I think it's early to mid 2000s, 2004, 5, 6, somewhere in there, where they'd grow wheat, and then after the wheat grew, they'd spray it with glyphosate. And I'm over in Africa. I can eat wheat. I can eat bread here. My stomach doesn't get heavy. I don't feel sleepy. Uh, I don't have any problems with the wheat here. I go to the States. I eat bread. I get sleepy. I feel bloated. I can't think. I feel a little cloudy headed. So I'm not sure if it's actually, I don't think it's a sensitivity to wheat. And that's what the term farinaceous means. It means foods that are produced from wheat. So, when somebody says, I'm gluten intolerant, if you want to use the rubric, it's under generals. I'll show it to you. It's under generals. And you can also just look up the term farinaceous and see where it pops up in the repertory. So farinaceous, and press enter. So starchy foods, not just wheat, rich in starch or flour, but most foods tend to have wheat in them. So allergic constitutions to flour. Again, not too sure how useful it is in the States, but if you're in Europe or in other parts of the world where they're not spraying their end product of wheat with glyphosate, so it's useful, because the natrums tend to be very sensitive, pulsatilla, very sensitive. So if you have somebody that's really sensitive to starchy, carbohydrates, you can use the term farinaceous. Forsaken, just feeling unloved, alone, forsaken by their parents, forsaken by friends, forsaken by their partner. So anytime somebody forsaken by God, anytime somebody feels alone, you can use the term forsaken. The term hang down is what we use if somebody, I get this with injuries usually, not so much with chronic issues, but more with injuries, or somebody's sprained their ankle, or they fractured a bone in their foot or something below the knee, tibia or the fibula. And they go, I need to keep my leg elevated. I cannot hang my foot off the bed, or off a chair, off the couch. It has to be elevated. So that's under generals. Hanging down, letting the limb or the affected part hang down aggravates, means they couldn't, or ameliorates. So the other person that says, so let's say that you have two people with a fractured medial malleolus, right? The inside of the ankle's been fractured. One person needs to keep it up because if they let the leg hang down, it throbs and it swells and it becomes aggravated. You would use aggravation. Calcarb is the main remedy there, and belladonna, but calcarb is a big remedy for bones. And then you get somebody else says, I can't elevate it. I have to let my leg hang down. That's when it feels its best, which is a little stranger and peculiar. Then you got your 68 remedies there. Kanayam being one of the main remedies. It's the grade 3 in there. So if somebody has an issue, and it can be the arm, can be any body part. That's why it says letting the limb or affected part hang down aggravates or ameliorates. Okay. I've just found it very useful over the years. So I'm just letting you know the term that you want to use for that. Haughty, these are people that think they're better than others. Not too much explanation there. You get your platina, lycopodium, sulfur, and 140 other remedies. Head high and head low. You can use generals. This is typical could be for headaches, but typically for respiratory issues. The person that needs to put a bunch of pillows behind them because they can't lie flat. So that's under generals. Lying with the head. With the head high or with the head low. So you can use with the head low aggravates. These are people that cannot lie down flat on a bed or a couch. They need to stay propped up. Lying with the head low aggravates. Lying with the head high ameliorates. You see arsenicum is a grade 3 and a grade 3. So arsenicums tend to do much better. They don't do well lying flat, especially with respiratory issues. They tend to want to sit up or be propped up if they're really weak, or they have to get up out of bed and walk around, pace. So you'll also find it under cough, lying, head high and head low, whether it ameliorates or aggravates. I'm just backspacing here, going to respiration, lying, with the head high or with the head low, ameliorates or aggravates. You pick the appropriate rubric. Question? Let me see. Okay, yeah, no problem. Thank you for attending. I understand we ran a little bit late, and I apologize again for that. So head high, head low, we talked about that. Kleptomania, these are people that steal things. Okay. There are a couple of sub-rubrics. Like kleptomania, stealing dainties, which are little snacks and treats, sweets. Lascivious, I touched on that one. Maddening. So I just wanted you'll come across this under head, pain, maddening. These are headaches that cause the person to get angry. Okay. So you see gelsemium, it's causing maddening headaches, belladonna. So don't always just there's another rubric that people tend to go to. It's irritability, headache. During headache, there's 80 remedies there. Encephalitis is a grade 3. Let's see. Gelsemium is not in there. It's belladonna there. Belladonna's there, but it's a grade 1. If you type in the term, there's also pains, maddening, I believe, under general. Let me just get rid of these. Maddening. I want to look at all repertories. 18. Megalovori, 162. Wow. Oh, it's picking up madness. So head pain, maddening, generals, pain, neuralgic, maddening. So these are nerve pains that cause the person to get upset. Ear pain, maddening is one remedy. Pulsatilla. I'm just curious to see what Megalovori has. Oh, madness. So it's looking up other words that has the term mad in it. So anyway, it's a good rubric. Bulgar's got 14. Madness, rage, being beside oneself, frantic, madness, madness from pain, arsenicum. So it's a good rubric. So if you come across it, it just means it makes them upset. Typically, pain causes them to feel upset. Necrosis, this is for tissue that's died. So we've got a couple. Necrosis just means dead. So generals, necrotic. So you've got arsenicum, fluoric acid, extremities necrosis, cold applications ameliorates, ice ameliorates. And then the other rubric, if you're dealing with somebody with gangrene or necrosis, blackness of external parts. This is the other one. 116 remedies. There's arsenicum again, mercurius, opium, cuprum. Interesting, the cuprum's there. So this is for when the tissue turns black, and if it's black, it's usually necrotic. It usually means it's dead. And you also have inflammation, internal gangrenous, inflammation, gangrenous. You get the same remedies, arsenicum. There's a lot of snake remedies because snake poisons are so toxic to protein and tissues. Night watching, this is a good one. So night watching is the combination of anxiety or worry with loss of sleep. So let me just type in, I'm going to do night. Then the next term is watching. So these are cocculus indicus is one of the main remedies. So I'm going to look up in all documents. And so we're going to get repertories and so on. So Bulgar, Boninghausen, night watching, mental strain, ill effects, 14 remedies here. Bellis P, interesting. Gelsemium ignatia, lactifloratum, which is skim milk, colchicum, zincum, aceticum. There's cocculus. Then you go to Schwoyen, there's Adonis. This is a perfect example as to why I like to use different, look for a term in different repertories because you're going to get different remedies. So night watching from loss of sleep. So ambergresia, bryonia. So you see remedies that are here that were not in Bulgar over here. And then go all the way to the bottom. Let's see what Yasgur says. Yasgur's got it, so we'll go to Yasgur and see. But it's a combination of worry, anxiety, worry with loss of sleep. Where's Yasgur? There it is. Let's see, dictionary. Night watching. Inability to sleep, which causes the person to remain alert at night, constantly moving and looking about, restless, aimless, staying up at night to care for a loved one who is ill. And again, you're staying up, you're losing sleep, and you're in a state of anxiety or worry or stress over them. Okay, so really, really good rubric when it's present. It's usually an exciting cause. It usually brings on symptoms. Pneumonia is going to be under chest inflammation of the lungs, and then there's some related rubrics for the different stages. There's a rubric for neglected. So these are pneumonias that have not been treated properly, even if they've been given antibiotics, but still lingering. You can use neglected pneumonia. There's different stages, incipient, and then stage 2, 3, 4. I touched on this term pollutions. Pollutions are, it's ejaculating without the intention of conception. So through masturbation or through dreams, So we just look up the terms pollutions. Actually, just go to dictionary. The other term you might find periodically is onanism. Where's dictionary? Pollution. Defilement, seminal emission outside of intercourse, in masturbation, wet dreams, self-pollution, or self-abuse. Masturbation. It's a big term. I'm just going to type in pollutions and show you how many rubrics this term is in. 300 in Adonis, anxiety after pollutions, confusion, fear from noise at night after pollution, from slightest noise, hysteria, male genitalia, your vision, excoriation of the lips after pollutions. So it's a term that's very useful when needed. Precocity, just little adults, kids that tend to act grown up. They want to be treated like a grown up. They tend to learn to read sooner than their age, and they should. They're precocious. They're doing things ahead of schedule, and they're like little adults. Religious affections, these. So you have to parse out, like, do I use religious affections if somebody's is a genuine, healthy, um, spiritual, religious life? No, we don't use it then. We use it when the aspect of spirituality starts to become deviant in a way. They can't sleep unless they pray. They stay up all night praying. Um, they feel as though there's a rubric, anxiety of salvation. They don't think that they're going to be saved and go to heaven. So it's a big rubric with many, many, many sub rubrics and a lot of remedies. So you use it when you feel that the person's religious or spiritual beliefs, teachings, behavior is affecting the case. It's not it's not a healthy relationship to the divine. It's changed in a way. It's adulterated. Okay. Reproaching, blaming oneself, blaming others. Very useful. It's got a Kunzli dot, which means Jos Kunzli found it a very useful rubric when it's there. We're done essentially. So satyriasis. So if you have a female that is excessively aroused easily, you use nymphomania. Nymphomania. Okay. If you have a male with the same problem, satyriasis. Oops. What I do? Mind satyriasis. So it's the male version of nymphomania. Okay. And then, wounds. So there's a term called proud flesh. And proud flesh is essentially granulation tissue, and it's part of the healing process of skin. And so it's going to be under generals. This is the main place you're going to find it, wounds. Under proud flesh, granulations and proud flesh. There it is. So granulation is just a part of so if somebody's got an abrasion or they've got a laceration, and the tissue's healing, you can go and look up the process of the healing process for skin, and there's going to be an aspect where there's a lot of capillaries being reintroduced into the tissue as the tissue grows, and that's part of the granulation process. So when you see the term proud flesh or granulation, that's what it has to do with. It has to do with the healing of the skin. And you can see arsenicum is there, silica, and sulfur with a Kunzli dot. Let me just look up the term real quick. R-O-E-N-T. That'll be the last term that we're going to go over. Oh, I didn't want repertories. I wanted all. 1 second. So again, there's drop down, all references, and then oops, dictionary. So Jane, soft tissue of the body. It's not really a soft tissue. It has to do more with. Let me see what. See. Exuberant granulations, fungus growth from a granulating surface. Granulating just means, again, it's in the process of healing. So sometimes there can be problems with the healing process. You'll get extra tissue growing, which shows no tendency towards scarring tissue formation. So it can also form into warts or figworts. All right. So that's what I had as far as terminology goes. Went a little bit over, so I apologize for that. These are the books: Baruch Master's Perceiving Rubrics of the Mind, Yasgur's Homeopathic Dictionary and Holistic Health References, and Jane B., the Pocket Medical Dictionary. There are quite a few. If you just go to references, these are the dictionaries. That's actually a bibliography. So Jane, Master. Farouk Master has a homeopathic dictionary like Yasgur, and then the Perceiving Rubrics of the Mind, which is just how to understand the rubrics of the mind, which is, again, a really, really good book because the mind chapter has a lot of nuance to it. So, okay, I think that's it for today. I'll be doing one more presentation in about another month. So thank you all for attending, and I hope you have a great day, great morning, great evening, wherever you are. All right, thank you.